Studies show that a slow loading website will adversely affect your business. So how does your website stack up? Is your site fast enough for today's standards? Or are potential clients bailing and leaving your site before they even see your offer? In this video, I'm going to show you how to objectively determine if your website is slow, as well as how to fix it if it is slow, so you can keep your visitors engaged and grow your business. Today, you're going to learn how to quickly check the speed of your website, the most common things that cause websites to run slow, and how to fix your site so it loads faster and improves the user experience and boosts conversions. We've all heard the story of the tortoise and the hare, where slow and steady wins the race. But when it comes to your website, the tortoise doesn't stand a chance. Speed is everything. I know I get frustrated with slow loading websites, and I'm pretty sure you do too. And guess what? Your visitors don't like slow loading sites either. Research shows that 53% of mobile users will abandon a site if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. And even worse, 88% of users are less likely to return to a site after a bad experience. So a slow loading website isn't just frustrating and annoying. It's actually driving away potential clients and damaging your brand. Let's start with running a few tests so we can determine if your website is actually slow and to what degree. Here are a couple tools you can use. Google has a free online tool called PageSpeed Insights, which you can find at pagespeed.web.dev. You just copy and paste the URL of any page on your site, click the Analyze button, then wait for about 30 seconds for it to spit out the results. It'll give you a score for the mobile version of your site, as well as a score for the desktop version of your site. Then you scroll down the page and also gives you details on what you're doing right, as well as specific factors that might be slowing down your website. Another tool is called GTmetrix, which you can find at gtmetrix.com. It works the same way as PageSpeed Insights. You paste in a URL, click the Analyze button, and then you wait for the results. I've used both tools and both are very good. In terms of presenting the results in a user-friendly format, I'd probably give the slight edge to GTmetrix. The one downside with GTmetrix though is that they only provide you with the results for the desktop version of your site for free, and you have to have a paid subscription to get the results for the mobile version of your site. It's definitely not expensive, and if you do like the GTmetrix user interface, it might be worth just paying them a few bucks. But I'll leave that up to you. For discussion purposes in this video, we're going to stick with PageSpeed Insights because it's a perfectly good tool. Now, to give you an idea what PageSpeed Insights scores you should be shooting for, on the desktop version of your website, you should be looking for something in the 90s or even, the 80s would be okay. And for the mobile version of your site, somewhere in the 60 to 80 range is acceptable. Now, the reason why you can tolerate a slightly lower mobile score is because, in my opinion, Google's PageSpeed Insights is a bit nitpicky on certain things when evaluating the mobile version of your site. So even if you get like a mobile score of say 76, when you look at that site on your actual phone, it's usually plenty fast. However, if you see scores in the 20s, 30s, or 40s, whether it's on desktop or mobile, you definitely have some work to do to speed up your site. Let's now talk about the top 3 things that result in a slow loading website and how to fix them. First, probably the biggest culprit in a slow loading website is bloated images. When you use a high-resolution image straight from your camera or phone, or even an image from a stock photo site, those images are usually way too large for a website. High-res images often have dimensions of, say, 2,000 to 4,000 pixels or more, and are often between 2 and 10 megabytes in size. So when you use a gargantuan image like that for a region on your website that's, say, 640 by 360 pixels, your visitor's web browser has to download that huge image file from your web server, then downsample it to get it to fit on your site. And all this takes time. So the solution is to pre-process these images before using them on your website. And specifically, this involves 3 things. First, cropping, which means trimming and cutting out the non-essential parts of the original high-res image. Second, resizing. Instead of using an image that's 3840 by 2160 pixels, you can resize it down to 640 by 360 pixels and still preserve the same aspect ratio. For cropping and resizing images, you can use an online image editing tool like Canva, or you can use something like Adobe Photoshop, or any basic image editing application you like. The third step with pre-processing images is compression, which is stripping out all the unnecessary data from the image file without losing any image quality. You can compress images using a WordPress plugin like Imagify, or you can use a free online tool like TinyPNG, which is my preferred method. By doing these three things, cropping, resizing, and compressing images, you can often reduce image file sizes by like 90 to 95% and greatly reduce the time needed for your web pages to load. For more information on pre-processing images, I have a detailed step-by-step guide on my website, and the link to the post is in the description below. Now, the second thing that can slow down your website is using outdated or an excessive number of WordPress plugins. You don't need 42 plugins running in the background. Too many plugins, especially poorly coded ones, create a drag on page load time. Therefore, get rid of any plugins you're not using, and make sure those plugins you are using are up to date. And see if there are any newer or multi-purpose plugins that you can use to combine functions so you don't have to use so many plugins. You also want to check to inspect your WordPress theme, because an outdated, poorly coded theme filled with unnecessary features could also be slowing everything down. If your website was built like 4, 5, 6 years ago or more, which is an eternity on the internet, it's probably time to do some upgrades and modernization to your site. Not only from a visual aesthetics perspective to keep up with the times, but also for a speed and functionality perspective. So you're not running a VHS player style website when everyone else is streaming in 4K. The third common thing that can slow down your site is having over-the-top complicated designs and page layouts. I'm talking about those big background videos, heavy animations, and all the unnecessary intricacies like too many layers of content blocks or columns, and all those extra elements make your site work harder to load and render, which slows everything down. Regardless of what WordPress themes or plugins you use or what page layouts your website uses, one thing that almost always results in a noticeable speed improvement is the use of a caching plugin. Now, my preferred caching plugin is WP Rocket. What a caching plugin does is it creates static versions of your pages so they load much faster instead of having to reload everything dynamically from scratch each time someone visits your website. Now, let me say a quick word about website hosting, because when you search online for ways to speed up your website, you'll often see the same advice regurgitated over and over: just get better website hosting. And yes, hosting matters, but the technology these days at major hosting companies like HostGator, Bluehost, and others is usually more than sufficient for a typical business website. And unless your site is pulling in over say 100,000 visitors per month, you probably don't need to worry about upgrading your hosting. For most business websites, focusing on image optimization, plugins, themes, and page design will have a much bigger impact on speed than switching web hosts. The speed of your site plays a big part in the user experience when people visit your site, and ultimately how many visitors convert into leads and clients. But here's the thing. Website speed is only just one piece of the puzzle. If you really want to maximize conversions and make sure your website is hitting on all cylinders, there are other factors you'll want to look at. And that's why I've put together a video called 8 Things You Need to Remove from Your Website Immediately, where I cover additional ways to keep visitors engaged and make sure your website is working at its full potential. And to watch that video, just click right here.